Hello, this video is for IXL, activity 8.F.17. It is titled Positive and Negative Square Roots. The 3-character code for this activity is 8 Tango Foxtrot. So the question asks, what is the positive square root of 1? And remember, whenever we're talking about the square root of a number, we're talking about this funny little sign here that looks like this, and then we have some number underneath it. And so we're looking for some value times some value is going to equal whatever's in that. And actually, it may be a different number. It could be the same. So maybe we'll call that z times z equals x. We're looking for the value of z. What number times itself equals that number? And for the first one here, if we think about what's the square root of 1, and I'm going to change back over to red. There we go. So what is the square root of 1? Well, some number times some number equals 1. Well, we know that number is 1 times 1. And so in this case, the square root of 1 is indeed 1. Now, it says the positive square root, and there's a reason for that. So let's look at the next question. The next question says, what is the negative square root of 1? So square roots have positive and negative square roots. Or I should say that squares have positive and negative square roots. So in this case, let's go ahead and look again at, we're going to talk about the square root of 1, and we need to know some number times some number equals 1. Well, again, that number is 1 times 1. Well, 1 times 1 equals 1. But we can't put 1 here because they want to know the negative square root. In this case, 1 is positive, correct? Well, let's think about this. What about negative 1 times negative 1? What does it equal? Well, it equals a positive 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. Negative times negative is a positive. So in this case, we could have negative 1. So you'll realize that square roots can have either a positive square or a negative square. So technically, any number that we take the square root of, this number that's underneath the radical symbol here, we call this value that's underneath that the radicand. And we realize that some value of, let's actually do the positive. We could take a positive value of z times a positive value of z in order to get this positive value of x. Or we could take the opposite of z times the opposite of z. And that would also equal that same value of x there. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next one and see what we have here. What is the positive square root of 36? So we're talking about the square root of 36. And we want to know what number times itself. So some number times itself equals 36. Well, in this case, x is going to equal 6, because 6 times 6 equals 36. And we do want the positive form of it, so it would be positive 6. What is the negative square root of 144? So we have square root 144, and we need to know some value of x times some value of x equals 144. So what would the answer be? Well, in this case, we know that 12 times 12 equals 144. But they want the negative square root, so we'll put negative 12. And this works out, because remember, negative 12, squeeze that 1 in there, times negative 12 equals a positive 144. So whether we use positive 12s or negative 12s, either way, we're going to get a positive value here, and 12 times 12 in both cases is 144. So the negative square root of 144 is negative 12. Again, we're using the negative root because they're asking for the negative root. Next question, what is the opposite of root 6,400? Or they're saying, what's the negative root of it? So we know this value is going to be negative. Now let's consider the square root of 6,400. So let's just focus on the 64. We recognize 64 is a perfect square, right? 8 times 8 equals 64. But we're actually talking about 6,400. So if we looked at it this way, what if we did 64 times 100 would be 6,400, right? And we could then, because I'm just rewriting 6,400 is 64 times 100, all underneath the radical symbol. Now, there's a rule that says I can split those up and do root 64 times root 100. 64 and 100 are both perfect squares, So the square root of 64 is 8, and the square root of 100 is 10. So in this case, the answer is going to be 80. And we want the negative square root of it, so it would be negative 80. The next question, what is the square root of 400? So if they don't say positive or negative, remember they're wanting the positive. Only use the negative if they're asking for the negative. So let's look at root 400. Well, we could rewrite root 400 as root 4 times 100. And then we could go ahead and split those up. Root 4 times root 100. 4 and 100 are both perfect squares. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 100 is 10, and 2 times 10 in this case is 20. So we're looking for our answer to be positive 20. What is the plus or minus root 1600? So in this case, if you see a plus or minus, they're going to want a negative answer and a positive answer. Now, for the positive answer, we don't actually have to put the plus sign. For the negative answer, we do need to include the negative symbol. So let's consider root 1600, and let's go ahead and rewrite this as root 16 times root 100. We're going to do that because 16 and 100 are both perfect squares, so it's going to work out real nicely. Square root of 16 is 4, square root of 100 is 10, and 4 times 10 is 40. So either a negative 40 would work or a positive 40 would work. And the reason for this is, check this out. If I have negative 40 times negative 40, that's going to equal negative times negative is a positive. 40 times 40 is indeed 1600. Or if I use the positive 40 times positive 40, in this case positive times positive equals positive, and 40 times 40 again is 1600. So the negative square root of 1600 is negative 40, and the positive square root of 1600 is positive 40. What are the square roots of 6,400? So in this case, they're talking about a negative root and a positive root. This is the same thing as if we saw plus or minus square root 6,400. So let's go ahead and realize we need the positive and the negative. I'm putting the negative first on the left, positive in the box on the right. Now I'm going to rewrite square root 6,400 as equals root 64 times 100. Now I'll split those up into root 64 and root 100. 64 is a perfect square. 8 times 8 is 64. And 100 is a perfect square. 10 times 10 is 100. And 8 times 10 is 80. So 80 is the square root we're looking for. We're going to have a negative 80 and a positive 80. And again, remember, you do not have to put the positive sign there, so we'll just go ahead and remove the positive sign from the positive form of the answer. What are the square roots of 10,000? So in this case, we're looking at, let's see, we're looking at plus or minus square root 10,000. So any perfect squares in 10,000? Well, there's 4 zeros, right? So in this case, it must be 100 times 100, right? So I could rewrite this as root 100 times root 100, splitting those up. And the square root of 100 is 10. And again, the square root of 100 is 10. 10 times 10 is 100. So we're looking for an answer of a negative 100, because negative 100 times negative 100 equals a positive 10,000. And also positive 100. 100 times 100 equals 10,000. So the positive and negative square roots of 10,000 are negative 100 and positive 100. What are the square roots of 289? So we're looking at plus or minus root 289. And I'm sitting there thinking maybe 13. 15 is 225. No, it's going to be higher, because 15 squared equals 225. 225 is less than 289, so I got to go up a little higher. If I went, I bet you it's 17 squared, because 7 times 7 is 49, and I see a 9 in the ones place right here. Okay, so I'm kind of focusing on that ones place there to kind of guess. I know it's going to be higher than 15. I'm going to assume that it is indeed a perfect square, So if I go ahead and do 17 times 17, 7 times 7 is 49, carry the 4, 7, 11, 17, 9, 8, and 2. Indeed, it is 289. So it's 17 times 17. So in this case, I'm going to have, let's put that here. Positive 17 times positive 17 equals 289. And a negative 17 times negative 17 also equals positive 289. So in this case, my answer is negative 17 and positive 17. Final question here. What are the square roots of 234? So I'm looking for the plus or minus root 234 or 324. Dyslexia strikes again. And in this case, let me see. We realized in that last one, 17 is 289. So 17 squared equals 289. So we need to go up a little higher. I'm looking for 4 times. I got a 4 in the ones place. So 8 times 8, 64. So 18 is probably going to work, right? And the reason I'm guessing it's 18 because 8 times 8 equals 64. The number 64 has a 4 in the ones place, and we see a 4 in the ones place here. So let's go ahead and try that. So I'll go ahead and do 18 times 18. 8 times 8 is 64. Carry the 6. 8, 10, 14, 18, 4, 12. Carry the 1. 324. Indeed it is. So in this case, we know that 18 times 18 equals 324. And also negative 18 times negative 18 equals 324. So negative 18, back, there we go. Negative 18 and positive 18 are the 2 square roots for the value of 324. And that concludes all of my examples for IXL Activity 8.F.17, positive and negative square roots. Good luck with your activity.